Good afternoon, it's Lee Cassidy from Tactile Technology, and we're going to talk all things Tintri again. So last week I did a quick session on VM Store and a quick refresher to people who've not seen Tintri for some time, because it's been around about 12 years, but not everybody's seen it. And we're also going to bring in to talk about the other side of Tintri, which is Intelliflash. And instead of having me waffle on, we've actually bring somebody in who actually knows what they're talking about for a change. So we've got Ross Cooper-Smith with us today from Tintri. How are you?
Good afternoon, Lee. I'm well, thanks. How about yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. I'm looking more festive than you are, but
Yeah,
I'm
you
using
win the
so
Christmassy
much
competition.
tape, sticking it back up as it keeps falling down with gravity. So I'll keep working at it. So yeah, I talked about Tintri's VM Store product last week and how it integrates into a virtualized environment, especially if you're using VMware, but will work in Hyper-V as well. And I went through some of the focus pieces around how it is specific to virtual machines and how you can do replication and it's good for diagnostic. But we didn't cover off anything about what used to be Tegile, but is now the Intelliflash product line, which is a part of Tintri as of, was it about 18 months ago, 2 years now?
2 years now.
Yeah,
quite a
2 years,
while.
2 years ago. Yeah. So I'm going to throw it over to you just to give us an overview of the product range. How it? I told you. You saw that was live.
You weren't lying. Look at that.
At least it's not too close. It could land on top of me, because that could be embarrassing.
Just make you more Christmassy. It's all good.
It, definitely. Right, over to you then.
Lovely. Okay, let me share my screen and I will get started. Just give me 1 second while I pick the correct monitor.
Yeah, and I shall add it in.
Lovely. And I will stop the camera temporarily as well, because my screen sharing is off to the side and I don't really want everyone looking at the side of my head. So just before I do though, let's introduce myself. So I'm Ross Cooper-Smith. I'm one of the principal engineers in the enterprise sales engineering team here at Tintri. And that means I'm one of the technical specialists responsible for the whole range of storage products we have. So that includes VM Store that Lee mentioned and was covered last week, which is the virtualization focused storage solution, but also Intelliflash, which is in a way, the more rounded product. Intelliflash is designed as a storage solution to cover lots of different use cases and really goes very well alongside VM Store. The two products do complement themselves really nicely. So with that said, I'm going to stop my camera ever so slightly. And I'm going to begin by just introducing DDN and Tintri for the viewers that may not have come across us before. Tintri generally is a brand that's reasonably well known within the enterprise world. We've been providing enterprise storage solutions for well over a decade. But today, Tintri is not the Tintri of old. We are officially the enterprise storage arm of DDN. And DDN is a name that is generally less well known in the enterprise space. DDN are the largest privately owned storage company in the world. They've been running for more than 20 years. But they specialize in very large-scale storage solutions and very high-performance storage solutions for AI, for high-performance computing, for research. They really specialize in big data and big data systems. They're very, very successful at what they do. Since 2014, 2/3 of the fastest 500 supercomputers on the planet have all been running DDN storage. Today, the #1 supercomputer in the world runs DDN. The Cambridge 1 supercomputer that was deployed in the UK this summer, that's running DDN storage. And a lot of this is done in partnership with NVIDIA. NVIDIA GPUs power some of the most powerful supercomputers and AI solutions in the world today. And NVIDIA actually have a supercomputer internally, codenamed Selene. That's ranked 5th in the world today, and that's powered by 15 petabytes of NVMe from DDN. So they're a very, very big storage player. But traditionally, they weren't in the enterprise space, and that's where Tintri comes into things. And Tintri today is made up of a number of products. The name Tintri historically was really associated tightly with VM Store. That's how the company was born. And VM Store is a storage solution that is really designed for virtualization. It's one of the only storage solutions that really was designed from day one purely for virtual workloads. And to this day, there really is no storage competitor in the market with the feature set that Tintri VM Store has. But the portfolio has been expanded over the years, adding in Nexenta for software-defined storage, adding in Intelliflash for more rounded storage. And today, the primary two products are VM Store, where the requirement is a pure virtual estate, whether that is a private cloud, public cloud, virtualization, typically VMware and Hyper-V, because they really do dominate the market. But we're seeing a lot more of things like KVM and OpenStack as well now. And then Intelliflash, wherever there's other use cases. And the beauty of Intelliflash is it has a lot of the intelligence and ease of use that VM Store has, but it's able to support a broader range of storage use cases. So whether you need block storage for very high performance databases or applications, whether you need storage for virtualization or containers, whether you need file services or NAS services, it's a very broad scope that Intelliflash can deliver against. And between the two products, we're doing very, very well. We've got a number of very well-known brands using the storage arrays. On the VM Store side, one of my favorite case studies is Sega. We've actually got a quote from Sega describing VM Store as overwhelmingly effective for running their public gaming cloud. On the Intelliflash side, we just happen to be running the storage estate for one of the largest manufacturers in the world. Western Digital are one of the largest manufacturing companies in the world, as well as one of the giants of the IT industry. They're running 79 Intelliflash arrays across their internal estate, just shy of 7 petabytes of primary storage. And there's lots of other customers like that. So whether it's the beauty of the range we have today is that the whole range is very well proven in the market with very significant customers and references. But let me get into the details and start telling you what Intelliflash is really all about. And the main way I distinguish between this and VM Store, if you're talking about the virtualization workload, is VM Store I describe as VM native. It's a storage array that's designed for VMs from the start. Intelliflash is VM aware. It's actually the only storage array on the planet, other than our own VM Store range, that can monitor virtual machine performance in real time from the array. Genuinely, there is no other storage vendor that can do this. There's lots of vendors that plug into vSphere or Hyper-V and pull the data from that, but they're telling you data after the fact, and they're only telling you what the hypervisor already knows. You're not actually gaining any more information or any more insights. And that's the reason why some of the cloud providers I work with absolutely love Intelliflash for their backend storage, because they're able to answer questions for customers much, much more quickly. They can see if there's a slow performing VM, they can instantly rule storage out because they can see the performance for that VM in hardware. And that's one of the big uniques driving Intelliflash in virtual markets. But as I said, it's a very, very capable platform. And this is actually a slide we used to use 4 or 5 years ago. I like to keep it around because it shows the breadth of capabilities. We can support block workloads, file workloads, virtual machines, large-scale file sharing. It's a unified storage array, so you can deliver all of that from one stack if you wish. You've got snapshots, replication, all of the things you'd expect for data protection, deduplication, everything you would expect from a modern enterprise storage array.
But the reality, can I ask a quick question there as well?
Sure.
So just to differentiate between, because years ago people used to have mainly spinning disks and have lots of them to be able to make it work. There was a start moving into all flash, and there's a number of people have done all flash based arrays. Tintri does a combination of both hybrid and all flash for the Intelliflash side, but it's all flash now on the VM Store side of it. What advancement does NVMe bring to people who've not actually know much about NVMe?
So NVMe predominantly is, the simple way to think of it is it's an upgrade to flash. You'll get lower latency, more throughput. It is a superior technology for performance from flash, and the flash market is shifting to NVMe, and the Intelliflash range has shifted to meet that. As you mentioned, the VM Store range is all flash or all NVMe, and that's very much because of the market we target. It targets primary storage virtual machines. Most enterprises globally, pretty much every large-scale enterprise and every cloud has standardized on all flash for that workload for quite a few years now. Intelliflash, because we support other types of workload, sometimes it's large archiving, sometimes it's smaller sites, sometimes it's mixed requirements, there's still a need for spinning disk. Disk is still lower cost than flash. There's still a market for that. So with IntellifLash, we still have that breadth of supporting the different types of workload, the different feature sets.
So that's maybe a situation where it's a write once, read very infrequently type piece. So large archives, or you're just going to keep stuff forever, but you may never look at it for a long time.
Exactly. We have customers using it for that. We have customers using it for transactional databases with hundreds of thousands of IOPS and sub-millisecond latency. One of the beauties of IntellifLash is it really can span all those different requirements.
Okay.
But although you see on screen there, it's quite a broad feature set. The reality, when I speak to enterprise clients, I speak to IT teams, CIOs, CTOs, directors of IT. When you ask the question, how often are you going to a storage array these days and provisioning new workloads, or in a very large estate, opening a ticket for a storage team to provision LUNs and map those out? And how often are you instead just going to VMware or Hyper-V and just creating a VM and provisioning the project in seconds? And pretty much every team for the last couple of years has said, look, it's just the latter. We very rarely touch the storage these days because we just don't need to. All of the day-to-day administration and business tasks and needs are met at the virtual layer. And the storage is typically providing either storages to virtualization or containers, or it's providing the corporate file structure. And there might be a little bit of day-to-day maintenance of just creating new shares, adding permissions. But again, a lot of that you can do from the client. And the trend we've seen is that feature set, that broad feature set, yes, it's still there. People don't really care. Every storage array you can consider in the market today has that feature set or very close to it. We've got a little bit more flexibility than most, but broadly speaking, you're going to have snapshots, replication. Pretty much all of the storage arrays now are very well proven. It's a very mature storage market. And what's happened is that the needs of the customer base have changed, and the product has changed with that. As you said, one of the primary changes is that most primary workloads now are all flash or all NVMe. We can deliver up to 0.5 petabyte in just 2U. And I'm actually working on
some of the things, if you look back at virtualization, it was actually getting away from the thought of IOPS, but really, throughput and latency was more important. How quickly can you get to that data, and how quickly can you suck the data out or push the data in, depending on what you're doing in virtualization.
But even there,
really didn't matter, did it?
With most enterprises today, with the move to 10 gig, 25 gig, or even 100 gig Ethernet, with the move to all flash and modern controllers, for the vast majority, and I'm talking well over 90% of enterprises, probably even 98% plus, a modern all flash or NVMe storage array has more performance than that business will consume. The vast majority of the time, when we crunch the numbers now, we're finding actually there's more than enough performance, typically to the order of 10 to 20 times more than they will consume. And it makes storage management much, much simpler. It means day to day for the storage team, all you're managing is, do I have enough free space on the array? That's it. There's no need to make it any more complicated than that. You can deploy the array, you can run virtualization, you can run your databases, you can run your file sharing. You can run, as we found in 2020, 700 plus users running VDI on that same array. We had a lot of customers with existing arrays deployed, and in 2020, they suddenly had this massive demand to push a lot of users onto VDI to enable remote access and remote working. And VDI traditionally was a very demanding workload for storage. A lot of our customers were surprised when they phoned us and we said, yeah, you don't need to buy any more storage. We've checked the specs, we've checked the headroom. You have more than enough performance on the existing array, and you can just deploy that workload. And of course,
I think one of the issues a lot of people had, though, when they had mixed workloads, wasn't it, with the earlier types of storage systems? If you had a mixture of something that was really dynamic like VDI, but plus you had some traditional type workloads of file and print and databases, used to sometimes get a conflict between the two. But I don't think that's a case as much these days, is it?
No, it's still something to be aware of, and we still size that carefully. But 2020 proved beyond doubt that you absolutely can run multiple workloads on the same array. That the hardware has met that demand comfortably now. And it's simplified the role of managing storage arrays. And it's everything we're talking about here really leads to the fact that what people need from storage day to day has changed massively over the last 3, 4, 5 years. And it's been as virtualization and cloud have matured. And I think the same will happen with containers as well. The number one goal with these is it's got to be easy to use. The expectation from most enterprise clients I have is that they're going to deploy a storage array. They are probably not going to need to touch that for 6 months, 12 months, 2 years. It's going to sit there providing file sharing, providing storage virtualization. They're going to be on a 5-year refresh cycle, and they're not going to need to make any changes at all after it's deployed. So one of the
I think also
goals,
if you look inside the enterprise nowadays, we don't have storage specialists anymore anyway. You know, we've got more generalist IT people, or the key thing will be the virtualization engineers will be actually looking after the storage now, rather than it being what we used to have storage specialists.
The storage management function has very much moved into the virtual layer, and storage has simplified as a result of that. And that's one of the core goals with Intelliflash. The user interface, it's very simple to learn. It's wizard driven. It's HTML5. It's a nice design, but I can teach an IT team how to manage Intelliflash in under an hour. And
I would assume well, being HTML5, it also works with mobile devices. So if you're out and about and you need to look and check on something, you can, because it works.
I would typically recommend a tablet, just so you've got that little bit of bigger screen space. But yes, it's HTML5. It's accessible from anywhere. But the goal of that is, if you're going to leave this array alone for 1 year, 2 years, when you come back to that array, it's no good having a complex storage system that you needed a 2-week training course to learn. You're going to have forgotten all of that by the time you come back to it. It needs to be something you can pick up as and when you need it, and just open up the GUI and go, I know exactly how that works. I understand that. It's easy.
I just want to throw in, if anybody's watching, so this is a live video, and there's a few people watching live at the moment. If anybody does have any questions at all, if you actually just do a comment wherever you're watching this, whether you're watching on YouTube or LinkedIn, just put a comment, and we can actually put those questions to Ross as well. So if you've got anything particular you want to know, just stick it in the comment section, and we'll pick it out and get Ross to answer it. I'm sure he's quite good on football, but technology might be better. Okay. Yeah. Well, I'll leave you to
it. Thanks, Lee. So going hand in hand with ease of use on the array, since the goal of most enterprises now is to deploy storage and leave it alone, one of the other primary requirements is it's got to be self-managing. So every single array that we sell, whether it's VMstore or Intelliflash, includes 24/7 monitoring from ourselves as standard. So if there is a fault in the array, say a fan fails or a hard drive fails, it's going to open a support ticket automatically. The team are going to reach out to you and work with you to replace that. So again, it's designed to give you the confidence that you can leave this alone and not need to really spend cycles and spend time in your IT team babysitting the storage. One of the primary features in almost every enterprise today is supporting virtualization. Tintri is renowned for virtualization support. The company was started by one of the senior architects of VMware. So that was how Tintri was born. We've got a very, very strong focus on virtual workloads. Intelliflash, as I said earlier, is one of the only storage arrays on the planet that can natively monitor machines, virtual machines, in real time. The only other storage array that can is our own VMstore. No other vendor has this capability. And it's a big, big difference. I'm not going to go into detail, but in terms of troubleshooting and efficiency and ease of use, even just for sizing your estate and planning growth, when you can see 3 years of performance history for every virtual machine in your estate, and you can see in real time what they're doing right now, you can solve problems quicker, you can plan more efficiently. It's designed for virtualization.
Yeah, and we've always shown people how you can actually use that understanding to be able to identify where the actual root cause of an issue is, because sometimes in virtualization it's hard to work out whether it's the storage, the network, or the compute layer that's causing it. And that granularity and understanding between the two makes it so much easier to identify where a problem resides and get on and deal with it.
Absolutely. And then moving on, one of the other features, single pane of glass management. So a lot of arrays have this kind of capability. One of the uniques, I'm going to actually pause. I'm going to come back to the unique in a second. we have some uniques around the global management, which makes it really suitable for modern enterprises with the security risks you have today around data, things like encryption, viruses, and ransomware. But I'm going to come back to that in a second, actually. One of the other things is simplicity. You can deploy a single type of array to meet a very broad range of use cases, whether this is storage for a branch, for a head office, whether this is a private cloud, public cloud, virtualization, containers, file sharing, multi-petabyte archive. It's one platform. Every array runs the same firmware with the same feature set. One of the reasons some of our larger clients are running Intelliflash is that over time, they've acquired 2, 3, 4 generations of array for a range of different use cases and roles. Every single one of those is running the same firmware. The current array and the previous 2 generations run the same firmware with the same feature set. That massively simplifies this kind of organic growth and complexity you tend to get in large enterprises. So it's a very, very strong feature. And then the final piece really is around security and snapshots. And I mentioned security briefly with the global management. One of the uniques for Intelliflash is we realized many, many years ago that with the role of storage changing and with people needing to make changes less often, what an enterprise team actually need from a storage array on a regular basis for managing the array, they don't need to be logging in and making changes. They're not provisioning new storage or rolling out VMs. That's happening in the virtual layer. What they need to know is, look, are my storage arrays healthy? Across however many sites I may have in the world, across any number of data centers, are all those arrays healthy? Have I got enough capacity? Can I see the trends of how capacity is growing over time and plan for growth in the future? Can I check all the support contracts and make sure that everything's under support and is covered and check my maintenance renewals? Can I look into performance problems if I need to? Can I look at the history of how my state is growing over time so I can make those strategic planning decisions? All of that can be done from the central management console of Intelliflash, which is IntelliCare. And IntelliCare, importantly, is a read-only console with no access to data, none whatsoever. You can do all of the regular management tasks that you need to manage a global estate suitable for companies the size of Western Digital from a console which is secure by design. If you're logged into IntelliCare and there's a hacker attacking your machine or there's a virus on your estate, they cannot get access to your storage arrays. They cannot make changes. They cannot get ransomware on that. Your data is safe. And that is one of the core designs, and again, one of the core uniques to the product. And that really works hand in hand with our snapshots. Because if you look at the real threats to data in the world today, ransomware, unfortunately, is massive. It's exploded over the last few years. It really is at the level of kind of organized crime and governments controlling this now. The global impact.
Some of the statements brought out by a lot of the governments on looking at security saying it's not if you get attacked, it's when you get attacked. It's whether you've got yourself in a situation you can either stop it happening or recover from it.
Yeah, it's like viruses back in the late 90s when the internet first came around. The internet was built around trust. When viruses started to spread, there were no defenses. They would just spread like wildfire. Literally within 30 minutes of you plugging a computer into the internet, there would be a virus on it. And ransomware is hitting that level of distribution. The global impact in 2020 to businesses of ransomware is predicted to reach $20 billion. In the UK alone, they're expecting a £374 million cost to UK businesses from ransomware attacks. It's massive. There's not a week goes by that you don't see ransomware attacks in the press.
Yeah.
So it's a real threat to not just your data, but also to the business. It's a threat to your business operations and the livelihood of your company. And one of the new trends that started.
One of the things that a lot of people forget about, though, is it's not the loss of data or the time it takes to recover it. It's also sometimes the impact that you've got from the reputation of your business being attacked as well. And actually, that reputational impact is actually much more than any of the loss of service from the business and also time it takes to recover.
Absolutely. And it may not be that your competitors are any better protected than you, but if they get wind of an attack, they'll still use it as a competitive tactic against you. And ransomware, again, is moving with the times. It's modernizing. Early 2020, almost 2 years ago now, a new strain of ransomware started targeting backup servers because they realized a lot of enterprises today have moved away from tape. and they're using backup to disk. Because if you back up to disk, you can back up more quickly, more efficiently. You can use it for disaster recovery. You can restore far more quickly, but it means your backups are live. They're on spinning disk. And a virus that gets onto your backup server literally has the keys to the kingdom. And what they started to do, and what they're still doing today, is they will encrypt your backups first. And they will spend sometimes 6, 9, 12 months slowly corrupting your backups, so that when they do then corrupt your primary data and lock it down, it is almost impossible for you to recover. Unless you have an offline copy of the data.
Get out of jail free card of that recovery point to go back to.
Exactly. And they know full well that even if a business has tape or cloud backups, the restore times for restoring an entire estate from tape, it's hours or days or weeks. Restoring an entire enterprise from cloud, genuinely, if you're using cloud backups today, test your restore times. For a medium-sized enterprise, you're talking weeks to months. And you may be hit by egress charges from the cloud to do that.
The egress costs for the data can be quite enormous.
Yeah, absolutely. What it's meant is storage snapshots are absolutely invaluable for every enterprise today, because a storage snapshot is a point-in-time copy of your data. It cannot be modified. It is out of the regular data path. A virus anywhere on your estate cannot change the content of that snapshot. It's completely protected. And not only is it giving you protection against ransomware and viruses over and above the protection you already get with your backups, absolutely run snapshots and backups together. You should use both. But it also has a near instant recovery time. Because if you ever do need to restore from that snapshot, it's seconds. The data doesn't need to move. The data is on the same array. All you're doing is restoring access to that old copy. And you can clone it in seconds. You can restore it. We've had snapshots in place for over a decade. They're effectively instant to take. They have no performance impact. Intelliflash has been extremely strong in snapshots for many, many, many years.
Yeah, to the extent I have service providers internally in the actual storage array, isn't it? It's not actually using the hypervisor to copy that data, so there's no impact on performance, and it's extremely quick.
Yeah, and it works so well that I have cloud service providers that are using Intelliflash for their backend storage, and they have backups. And when a customer requests a restore, they've told me they actually go to the storage snapshots first, because it is so much quicker and simpler for them to get the data back that way. They can restore customers in minutes, whereas using the backup software, it was many, many hours. So it is a very, very powerful technology. And the other type of threat which you've got to bear in mind is things like spear phishing attacks. And I'm using the term spear phishing just because it's so well known, but really this is about the human type attack. And this comes in lots of different forms. And the targets here could either be your staff, typically as a route to either get attackers and viruses into the network or to get some ransomware into the network, or targeting the IT team. And there are unfortunately starting to be more and more targeted attacks, whether that's for corporate espionage or whether that's for just getting ransomware in there to make money off your business. And again, the beauty of Intelliflash is that read-only management console of IntelliCare really helps give you an extra level of protection against those human attacks as well. Because your IT team on a regular basis are not needing to log in to the storage arrays with credentials that would allow an attacker to capture those credentials and again get the keys to the kingdom. It's all about defense in depth and having that robust security strategy. And it's a really important part of it. So we've taken a bit longer than I expected on security. Let me very quickly move on to actually showing you the range of solutions and the range of models. So I said earlier that from a features and function perspective, Intelliflash suits a wide range of different use cases. So we can support block storage, fiber channel iSCSI for kind of database and line of business applications. We are leading class for virtualization storage, whether we're talking VMs, containers, VMware, Hyper-V. Intelliflash genuinely is one of the best storage arrays out there for that type of workload. But we can also do NAS, whether that is small scale, large scale. That's all supported within this. And that entire feature set is supported on every single hardware platform within the Intelliflash range. And we have a range of platforms because, again, within our customer base, within the enterprise market, there are lots of different use cases. There's different data capacities, different performance needs, different workloads. And the beauty of Intelliflash is we can size it to all of those. So very simply, in the pyramid there, the entry level is the 6100 series of hybrids. So these are targeting simpler workloads or file sharing workloads where you don't need massive performance, but they still have NVMe caching in there. So all the recent data is still running very, very fast. Now, the market really has moved on, and you can't really buy a slow storage array these days. The mid-range is the N6100, which is now the NVMe platform. And we have just modernized this estate. So now everything in this range is starting with NVMe. The costs of NVMe have come down to the level that you can afford to do NVMe across the board for enterprise. So much as there was a transition 2-3 years ago from 15K, 10K spinning disks to all flash, there's absolutely now a transition happening in the market of moving from flash to NVMe as standard across the board. So the 6100 is the mid-range. This is the entry-level NVMe, really equivalent to the classic all-flash storage arrays of the past, but with that little bit better latency than you would get from all-flash alone. And then the flagship is the N6200 range. These are the ultra-high performance, all NVMe, very low latency, very high power, very high scalability. And then on the right-hand side, purely because it doesn't fit in the pyramid, we have the 6200.
It's a little bit big, isn't it, to fit in there?
It's not a small toy. So the 6000 is the large scale hybrid. So these today start at 0.5 petabyte. They can scale to 10 petabytes or beyond of effective storage capacity. And these are using that relationship we have with DDN, our corporate parent. DDN specialize in very large scale bulk storage solutions. So we're using the DDN hardware. It's the DDN controllers, the DDN expansion shelves and chassis with IntellifLash software running on that. And that gives us a very large scale storage solution for unstructured data, for bulk data sets, for those type of workloads.
So things like data lakes and those kind of things that people are starting to create nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely. Data lakes, enterprise file shares, all these types of workload. It's a very good fit. But every model there runs the same firmware with the same feature set, managed the same way. They're all running IntellifLash as the firmware on the device. They're all managed very simply over HTML5 or via the REST API if you wish to automate tasks. And they're all monitored from IntelliCare. So it doesn't matter how many different types of use case and requirement you have within your business or what level of budget you have. If you've got an enterprise workload, enterprise requirement, IntellifLash almost certainly is going to fit. Okay, so that hopefully was a good introduction to IntellifLash. Lee, definitely. I know you were hoping to do a demo. Have we got time for that, or do we need to?
Oh, yes. It's only just gone 1/2 past, so we've got plenty of time.
Lovely. Okay. For this, I will turn my camera off because now I do have to look to the other side because I've got to drive this. So
I'll drop us both out, actually. So I'll just put it on a slightly different view.
So all I'm going to do is I'm going to demo IntelliCare rather than IntellifLash. So IntelliCare is the management console, and for all of our customers, this is what we recommend as the primary management interface. This gives you that holistic overview of your whole estate, but it also gives you that in a very secure way. So absolutely best practice is to use IntelliCare to manage your IntellifLash systems. If we want to do a demo of IntellifLash as well, we can absolutely do that. It's just as easy to use, just as easy to understand. So what you're looking at here is the dashboard for our global demo lab. And you can see we've got 13 arrays being monitored in total. Of these, we have a number of these that are being used for kind of private demos, for testing. Some are just not on the public internet. So you can see at the minute, we've got 4 that are actively being monitored, 9 inactive. And inactive here doesn't mean necessarily the array's offline. What it means is it's not being monitored in IntelliCare. Most enterprise customers, every array you own would be actively monitored. We have a few clients, police, military, secure sites where they don't want to monitor this in the cloud. And for those, you wouldn't really use IntelliCare for that. But for most enterprise customers, this is where you would come. You can see the alerts, and these are a summary of the alerts you've had in the last 7 days across your entire estate. So you can very easily keep an eye on this and just see what alerts have been raised. You can click on these if you need to, go into the details, and you can very easily see what kind of faults there are. And we can see here, it's not even refreshed, but the bulk of these are fan failures. And we're marking that as a critical error fault because our definition is that anything where it's a physical failure that needs human intervention to correct, no matter how minor, we're going to class that as a critical fault, and we're going to flag that accordingly in our support ticket system and on the array. But we'll give you the trend data as well, so you can keep an eye over time and see, look, there's clearly been a spike recently. If we go and look at the 60-day overview, yeah, there's clearly been something going on in the lab. I suspect one of the engineers has been doing work, and it's triggered a bunch of warnings. But you can see over time, if you have had a spike in alerts, and you can very easily drill in and have a look at what happened at that point in time. And again, having that insight, really useful for kind of root causing things and making sure everything's running smoothly. We've got Call Home as well. So Call Home runs in parallel to IntelliCare. We believe in redundancy with these storage arrays. So we have IntelliCare, where we're collating all the logs and health information from the arrays, but we also have Call Home, which very simply is collating the same data, the same types of alerts, but doing so over standard SMTP email. So, and we'll use Call Home alerting and IntelliCare in parallel. So even if one of these services fails, your arrays are still being monitored by us. Smack bang in the middle is capacity usage. One of the challenges of modern storage arrays is that they will be using thin provisioning, compression, dedupe, all these space-saving technologies. That capability is a big part of why Flash is so much more affordable these days. But what it does mean is the amount of storage you're provisioning internally, the amount of storage your VMs appear to use, or the storage your files appear to be taking up, does not necessarily map directly to how much space that needs on the back end. The global average for dedupe in the enterprise sector is around 2 to 1. It really does depend on your data set. We've got clients anywhere from 2, 3, 4 to 1, all the way up to a few deployments where we're seeing 14, 15, even 20 to 1. So you can get a very high compression ratios depending on your data set. And
yeah, the higher is normally things like VDI type workloads.
Yeah, VDI, software development, testing labs, those kinds of workloads where there's a lot of duplication of data. You can get very, very impressive data reduction results. Even backups as well, that kind of technology. So it's very important to be able to see clearly on your storage array how much space is actually being used, how much space you've got physically free on the drives. And that's what you see here. You're seeing available on this particular state, 46 terabytes. It is a lab, so it's pretty small. But you're seeing how many terabytes you've got free across the whole estate. That is after all of the internal overheads, RAID, data protection. That's how much data you can actually put on there. It's showing you how much space your data is consuming today, how much space your snapshot's consuming, and whether there's anything being consumed by internal overheads. And this predominantly tends to be old snapshots that we're in the process of deleting and freeing up the space for. You can also see on the right-hand side how much space we're saving. You can see your overall data reduction rates, and the combination of that plus the free space here lets you know how much more data you can fit on your arrays. So here, there's about 46 terabytes free, 2.8 to 1. You're going to get well over 100, 140 terabytes of capacity. 140 is a bit excessive. 100, 110 terabytes of additional space. I'm trying to do the maths in my head. So you can see very easily exactly how much room you have for growth within the estate. And you can also see down the bottom here, another health indicator of just whether there's any alerts on the health checks of the arrays. And this is something we have running in addition to the standard event logs on the arrays. We've also got a regular set of checks that are checking things like network availability, network port, controller health, number of different health checks that are running all the time, which essentially are making sure that all your arrays are in a fully redundant state. They're able to fail over between the controllers, all the network links are up, just doing that little bit of extra care and attention. If I go on the Arrays tab, we can now see details for individual arrays. And if I pick one of the medium-sized systems here, a T4700, what we can now see is we can see the capacity report for this individual array. We can see the overall data reduction we're seeing at this particular site, this location. And you also see here we've got the description of whether it's in active, passive mode, how many pools we're running. We can see the uptime of the controllers, the firmware version, how many alerts are present. You've also got a link to management. So if you did need to make a change, if you needed to provision a new share, a new LUN, it's a single click from IntelliCare to actually open up a tab with the user interface for that particular array. You'll authenticate separately into that for security, and then you can go make your changes. So even though this is a read-only secure console, it's still very, very simple to make a change if you need to. It's not really adding a huge number of extra steps or complexity. We can go into the system information. We can look at the hardware summary. We can verify that health check logs are uploading into Intelliflash on a regular basis, as they should. We can see the history of when the firmware has been updated separately for the two controllers. You can see the date and time for every upgrade. We don't have any physical data on this one. Let's try one of the others. So here we go. You can also see if you've got any expansion shelves, which network ports are fitted, whether that's fiber channel or Ethernet, and the status of all the links. So we can see very, very easily this one here, 8 gig fiber channel, links working, but actually one of the two links on this system is down right now. It's not established. Similarly, we've got a 10 gig management interface that currently is running at 1 gig per second. So very easy to understand, but all that data is there for your whole estate.
Just a quick question on that fiber channel side. It's becoming less and less common to see fiber channel. How often do you see fiber channel now in comparison to Ethernet-based systems?
Really rarely these days. There's still a lot of estates where they've made a significant investment in fiber. Typically, they'd be running at 16 or 32 gig fiber. And the nature of switching, whether it's fiber channel or Ethernet, is that it tends to be a very long-term investment. You're not looking at 5, 6, 7 years as you would for storage. You're typically looking at an 8, 9, 10, even longer lifespan. So there's a lot of customers that still have fiber channel today, and that's why we have the fiber channel functionality, because we can drop Intelliflash straight into those estates. But these days, when we're doing that, we're very often deploying an array, as you see here, with both fiber channel and Ethernet, because more and more enterprises are, if they're not already standardized on 10 or 25 gig Ethernet, they're very much planning for that for the future.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have thought many greenfield sites would actually choose fiber channel. They'll go down one of the higher speed Ethernet options, won't they?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a simpler architecture today. 100 gig Ethernet outperforms fiber channel. It's proven to be absolutely as resilient in the enterprise, and you can standardize on a single architecture. You still will have network teams within large enterprises. You will have network specialists, and it means you've now got one team that can manage front-end networking, back-end networking, storage networking. You're just standardizing and simplifying your estate. So it's become increasingly popular. There's definitely a massive trend that way. But the good news is we support both, fully supported, a full feature set available on everything. We can go to the support tab here, and you can get a quick summary of all of the arrays, the firmware version they were running, which models they are, whether you've got support contracts. These are a lab, so we don't need a support contract for our own lab. It's our kit. But for a customer, you would actually see that they're all supported. You would see whether you're running standard or gold or platinum support. And you'd be able to see very, very simply when support expires. A couple of here we probably should have renewed. So we make it pretty simple to keep an eye on your estate and make sure everything is covered. You've also got some quite nice reports here. I'm going to start with the space trend analysis. So this one is designed to give you up to a year's worth of visibility in how your capacity usage is growing. And you can see here, we've got a pool that is growing pretty rapidly. There's clearly been an uptick in data coming into there. And we can see if we carry on at the same rate, we're going to be 80% full early January. We're actually going to be out of storage here before March next year. And this is a really useful tool for keeping an eye on your estate. It will give you the dates on screen of exactly when you're going to run out of capacity. And I work with IT teams, system administrators, that they actually love this because it helps them for their planning. They can plan up to a year in advance, and it helps them in securing budget, because they found that procurement departments, when you take a screenshot stating that you'll be out of storage by this date, it tends to focus the mind and make sure that the investment from the business happens when it needs to. So
yeah, and really say it was always a big challenge for the IT teams to actually do that capacity planning piece in the past, and people made a lot of money with very specialized software that would actually calculate these kind of things. But now, you can have it included in your standard array from Intelliflash.
Yeah, included standard. There's no licensing for this. You've got visibility of a year's worth of trend data showing you how the usage has grown for every single array within your estate. And you've also got that predictive analysis showing you what's expected to happen over the next 12 months if your growth carries on at the same rate. And there's another report that kind of builds on that, which is the advisor report. And I'm just going to pick a random date here. If you remember, actually, all of these are dying. I need to go and have a word with our lab manager and get him to redo some of these. Let me just have a look. There we go. So the advisor report is designed to work hand in hand with that concept I said earlier, that we expect enterprise customers to deploy these arrays, to work with us on day one. So we'll advise on best practice, how to set it up. We'll assist with the configuration. We'll make sure that everything is set up spot on as the array arrives, with the expectation being you're probably going to be leaving this alone, very light touch from that point forwards. And the advisor report is designed to work with that. So this is something you can schedule to arrive in your inbox once a week, once a month, once a quarter, and it's going to give you a summary of the health of your estate. So it's going to start with telling you how many of your arrays it's monitoring. It's going to give you a quick summary of overall capacity. Similar for metadata, although honestly, these days, with the power of modern CPUs and NVMe, it's very rare anyone's going to hit any kind of metadata limits whatsoever. But it's also going to give you this, which I think is a really, really nice touch. This is the summary of all of the storage arrays, all of the pools within your estate, and it's going to show you over the next 6 months to 12 months, which ones are starting to fill. And we can see here really clearly that most of the arrays that we're managing here, they're below 50% capacity. There's no concern at all. We have one that within 6 months is projected to hit 70 to 80% full. And within 12 months, it's going to be climbing to 80 to 90%. I know full well in the next 12 to 18 months, I'm going to need to add extra capacity onto that pool. So that trend data is coming into your inbox once a month, once a quarter, however often you want to look at this. And again, it just helps you know with confidence you have enough capacity in your estate, and you're going to get 12 to 18 months notice of anything that's starting to fill. So it really helps, again, give that peace of mind and just make management a little bit easier. Nice one here for boasting to the finance team how much money you've saved them. It will show you your overall data reduction rates, whether you're hitting 2, 3, 4, 5 to 1 for your data sets. You can point out to finance, look, we only need to buy 1 storage array instead of 4. Can I please have money for that expansion because we're going to be running out of space? And you can also see alerts. You can see a summary of how many alerts you've had in this period. And again, if this is coming into your inbox once a month, you're going to get a feel very quickly for what's normal, and you're going to be able to spot at a senior level, at a management level, am I getting more alerts than I would expect on these storage arrays? And you can then go to the team and you can say, look, what's happened on the arrays? Have we had a problem with them? Is it all fixed? Is there something here we need to look into and allocate a bit more time to work on? You can get alerts such as whether call home's disabled. It will tell you here if support is due to expire in the next few months. And all of that is going to come in an email straight to your inbox. You don't even have to log into the array once you've configured this. So there's a few other touches. There's more detail we can go into, but I think that's a reasonable quick introduction to Intelliflash and just day-to-day kind of the experience of managing these arrays.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much. Any other areas you want to cover? We've got about 10 minutes to go. If you've got any other key things you think would be important or use case side of things.
I think for an introduction, we've covered quite a lot of content because we've talked about a lot of different use cases, a lot of different requirements. I would say probably the ending statement, the closing statement would be, if you're managing storage today, if you've got a primary estate running virtual machines, file storage, if you've got a requirement that's anywhere from 50 terabytes for VMs, a couple of petabytes for VMs, anywhere from 50 terabytes to 5 petabytes of unstructured data storage, come talk to us and have a look at Intelliflash. It's probably going to surprise you.
Yeah, and so in the background, we've got Rachel driving a few things, put a few little banners up and things. So if you want to stick the banner up about doing a personalised demo in the future, Rachel, or ask for more information. So if you want to take down those details, so either lee.cassidy@tactiletechnology.com or rachel.gould@tactiletechnology.com, we can get you set up for a personalized demonstration or further information, so you can learn about anything to do with Intelliflash. Also, we can talk about the VM Store side of things, which we demonstrated last week. We've got a couple of other talks coming up. One is tomorrow, which is with John Andrews from Gurukul. Gurukul's a company that specializes in security. So we were talking a little bit about security and some of the issues around ransomware and those kind of things. Gurukul's got a very great solution that allows you to do SIEM, which is the monitoring of your infrastructure and looking for patterns of breach, but also some heuristic type pieces as well. So looking at human behavior and what's happening there, UBA type monitoring as well. And we're going to have John talking about his experience, because he's also an ex Splunk employee, so he's seen it from some of the other technologies as well. So we've got John tomorrow. Next Tuesday, we've got KJ Clark from Downtown in Business, who is very good at getting people together to work together. So she's going to tell us a little bit about Downtown in Business and herself and how she got to where she is today with that. And she's done some great jobs of introducing us into a number of organizations that we can talk to about some of our technology as well. So, join us next week with KJ, or join us tomorrow with John Andrews as well at Gurukul. Well, thank you very much, Ross, for joining us today. That's been great. As always, very professional, very knowledgeable. Like I say, it's always good to bring the professional in from time to time rather than the amateur like myself.
Don't undersell yourself too hardly.
Yeah, and it's also very good to talk about aeroplanes. We were chatting about aeroplanes before, because we've both got a bit of an aeroplane background and things from the past, so that's quite pleasant to do as well. Well, thanks ever so much again, and hopefully speak to you again soon.
Thanks, Lee. Speak to you soon.